and welcome to another streaming that I wanted to offer to my viewers and give them a little information today that might be of help to them. And maybe I should do these daily anyway. Maybe I should do kind of a daily journal with Jerry, and maybe that would be a supportive thing to do. I hadn't even thought about that. Might be something I might do. I want to share with you the new 6-week program that's coming up uh, on May 7th. If you get in May 6th or before, you can get the pre-launch discount and all of the bonuses that go with that. It is a self-paced learning of 6 modules, major modules with exercises and other supplemental things. Your new road to self. All you have to do is go to the website, my website, Jerry Wise Relationship Systems, and the program's right on the front page, or you can click the link that I think will be added below. I wanted to talk about a topic, navigating toxic family patterns and how differentiation can save you. Now, that sounds like a pretty broad statement and a pretty serious statement. You mean that self-differentiation can save me? Well, I'm going to share with you some things that you can decide whether that would be the case or not. I do know that, and we're going to be talking about the importance of, disconnecting from the dysfunctional family patterns and toxic family patterns, and how that has effects on your mind, your emotions, your health, your cells, inflammation, all kinds of things. And one day the medical community, I think they've already started, but we'll begin to see that as a much more important um, thing to take a look at. I remember when I was doing a chaplaincy program, and it was in a pastoral counseling supervision group, and we were working at the hospital, and certainly it was interesting to do family genograms with patients, or at least a thumbnail sketch of those family genograms with patients. And it was interesting, the healthier the family, the healthier the patient would be. The more unhealthy the family, the more the outcomes were not as positive for the patient. Now, do you think that's possible? Well, I think many of you probably would, because many of you have talked about and said, how stress and anxiety affect our bodies. We are all connected, our body, mind, spirit, everything is connected with us. Our emotions somehow different from the brain? No, they're part of the brain. Our thoughts part of the brain, and some connection with emotions? Yes. We are all a unified look at how we are beings, physical beings and medical beings and biological beings, and how those things are all connected. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And so if you want to think about improving your health, there might be some information. Now, I can't go into too much detail today, but I will at least try to touch on some of these ideas. I go into much more detail in the online program, and you can check that out in the link below. First of all, dysfunctional families are anxiety reinforcers and act as conduits for this anxiety. Now, why do I use the term anxiety so much? A lot of people say, well, or nobody really has said this, but I'm sure some people have thought, Jerry, you talk a lot about this underlying anxiety and how important it is. Well, because in the world of the animal world and the human world, there is this underlying anxiety which has to do with the fight and flight lower brain of ourselves. And then as we develop and as we have grown, we then have more sophisticated emotions. You know, dogs or monkeys or what might have awareness, but they are not aware of their awareness. Human beings are aware of their awareness, whereas other animals might be aware, but they won't be aware of their awareness. And so, but we are still on the same biological level in the sense that anxiety and this anxiety that has come from the lower brain for survival, fight and flight. It's very useful. It has saved us for, many thousands of years for us to continue to be human beings and function in a society and to, ward off danger and to avoid danger. So we've needed that. Now, what's happened is we've kind of grown beyond that more primitive um, triggering anxiety mechanism. We aren't just beings who just do fight or flight. That's not all we're doing. And also in today's modern society, a that chronic anxiety that has been there with all life. All life has anxiety underneath their emotional system. It's a part of the emotional system. And so we have this anxiety and it will trigger when it doesn't need to be triggered. So it helps us and it also hurts us. And if you've grown up in a dysfunctional family, traumatic family, abusive family, alcoholic family, narcissistic family, what you're going to find is this is going to, you're going to find that you're going to be more reactive than your body needs you to be, because we have learned and partaken of all this anxiety that's in this dysfunctional family. And as I mentioned, dysfunctional families are anxiety reinforcers and act as conduits for this anxiety. Another way to think about it is the more immature a system is, the more immature people are around you, the more you will have more anxiety going on for everyone. Because not everyone can just relax and be themselves. Either they haven't learned that, either are they personality disordered and can't do it, or they, or there are issues they haven't resolved. Um, but everyone has this anxiety, and when you're immature, I also know there's a lot of anxiety going on. Have you ever met somebody that was really immature? One of the signs of that is how much anxiety they're dealing with. And I'm not saying they're nervous. I'm nervous. I'm not, but what happens is they're so upset. They're triggered by this. They're triggered by that. They don't think things through. They don't have good judgment. And I think what happens is this anxiety that has not been corralled or has not been separated from causes all of this immaturity for them. And it seems very normal for them. It seems like this is normal. And then they behave in immature ways, make poor decisions, don't understand why people don't understand why they're so upset. And, well, I don't know what I just said that I wouldn't be able to join you this Sunday for the family dinner, only because I have to work. And then the family goes into a meltdown. Now, how is that maturity and what's going on that's causing the meltdown? Don't tell me the meltdown is because I'm not coming on Sunday, um, because that's not causing the meltdown. That's just a fact. It's just a fact. There's nothing personal meant by it. I'm not saying I hate you guys. You're all horrible. I'm not going to come to the family dinner Sunday. No, it's just simply I've got to work. I won't be able to be there. Then everybody melts down, and it's not because I'm not coming. It's because there's underlying anxiety that gets triggered, and then people start reacting with different feeling experiences. But what's underneath it is, and thank you so much, Gina. I appreciate that. It helps to provide for these live videos. And thank everyone for your comments. And I have the people who follow me are such good people. They're great people. I just can't say that enough. I've been saying that for decades because you guys really are. So the family then gets highly anxious, and then they have all these emotional reactivity. Maybe somebody will get mad, somebody will go wander off in a void, somebody will start saying jokes like a mascot, someone will be the hero and try to, oh, well, I'll see if I can go pick up Jerry from work so he can get here sooner, on Sunday. They all go into those modes and those roles. And you could just feel all the anxiety, and good morning to you. Someone in Germany, I assume. And I know enough German to be dangerous, but probably not enough to save myself. The whole family is anxious and upset, and then I'm a part of that too. And also, it feels contagious. That anxiety feels contagious. And what's strong about that anxiety, and again, that's the universal that's underneath all of the emotional processing, all the feeling processing, all the mental processing. What's underneath there is this anxiety. Um, and well, you're very, very welcome, Danka. It's so kind of you. I'm glad I could be of help. And so this big pool of anxiety is multi-generational. In other words, it's not just stopping at your parents or your grandparents or great grandparents or great great grandparents. It's probably at least 5 generations that this family is dealing with all of this trauma, anxiety, that's underneath everything they do. And then depending upon the persons in the family, personality, the personality, the temperament, physical limitations, mental limitations, emotional limitations, then that anxiety will get expressed in different ways. But it's still a bottom line. The problem is the anxiety. That's what we see as common. And it is also that current that flows between a dysfunctional family and me. Everybody in the family has been set up with a default Wi-Fi. In other words, when you get born, you get signed on to the family Wi-Fi. And you didn't even know it. And you didn't even know it. You didn't get asked if you wanted to or not. And then when you're having trouble with it, it's hard to disconnect from it because it's been so normal, so common for all these years, and so just this is the way things are, that we even become blind to it and don't even see how we're affected by that. Self-differentiation is the work of disconnecting from this grid. That's what self-differentiation work really is at the core. Now, there's some easier ways to think about it, but it's because self-differentiation is simply being yourself while staying connected and you managing the emotional process that's going on between the two of you. Now, when I say be yourself and stay connected, that doesn't mean I'm going to be myself and now I'm going to stay very close and connected with a malignant narcissist. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean by is that I'm going to be as mature as I can be, set as appropriate boundaries as I should set, keeping myself calm, regulating my own self, defining my own self as to what I want or don't want, what I need and don't need, and then being aware of how this interaction with another person is interacting with me, and being aware of that. When they do this, I do that. When they feel this way, I feel that way. Just think about. I'll just think about a basic one. If your mother, let's say your mother, mothers are always important. I don't blame mothers. I don't blame mothers or fathers. I don't even blame families. Blaming is not self-differentiation. So I want you to know, I don't blame families. I just know where to look for the information. That's different than blaming, because my parents were product of their parents and their parents. So how, that I understand that's how the system works. Now I understand they were adults and they could have made other choices and maybe they didn't. So we all have responsibility, but blaming's not going to get me anywhere to do that. It's not going to help me self differentiate. And in fact, blaming, you may not like this, blaming is a way to stay connected to the dysfunctional family anxiety and to remain as a conduit. If you continue the blaming, then you're going to have the trauma and injury, the have that trauma and injury, which then ends up being traumatized again, or we feel bad again. And so what we want to do is to reduce that, let's say, blaming. There are other things that keep us connected as well. The and see, I want to be able to get to a place, and self-differentiation, kind of this whole process of self-differentiation, is the work of how can I be a healthy cell or a healthy being and not be traumatized or filled with all the anxiety that's around me in the emotional system. How can I do that? Because then I'm able to maneuver in this world of relationships and with myself in a way that's more mature, more healthy, and I think more effective. I don't want to go into a room and all of a sudden I'm a victim of everything that's going on in the room, because the Wi-Fi is so loud. And I'll tell you, every room you go into there's Wi-Fi. If you go into your work life, if you go into church, mosque, temple, wherever you go to worship, wherever your family's at, oftentimes if you have a group of friends, the Wi-Fi is on and everybody's Wi-Fi is pinging on everybody's Wi-Fi. If you can get that notion, that can help you begin to go, wait a minute, why am I needing to feel nervous right now? Why do I feel anxious? What does this matter? What am I worried about? Why do I all of a sudden feel upset when we had a family gathering and Diana and Ed showed up late? And showed up late to that. And that, I might mention, I think you had a good point there about passive aggressive. How can you do connection with passive aggressive? And I'll mention that in just a second. That's an interesting. So I'm now upset with Diane and Ed because they're always late. Let's say that, and now I'm frustrated and upset. Already the Wi-Fi is starting to go. And let's say my sister was always late, never was on time, always made me wait. And guess what? When Diane and Ed make me wait, ping, now we have Wi-Fi pinging everywhere. I want to disconnect from that. So self-differentiation is a way to help us disconnect from the grid. Let me get back to passive aggressive. And passive aggressive is a real yucky. When people are passive aggressive, it's just stinky. It just smells bad. It just doesn't feel good. and they're going to do it with a smile on their face, to pretend that, oh, well, I didn't mean to do that, and it's like, well, clearly you did it. Um, and it's passive aggressive. And I think with passive aggressive, I like to stay in myself and to stay in my own awareness and my own definitions and beliefs. If someone was passive aggressive and then let's say they gaslight or deny it, then I simply can say, I understand that may be how you feel, but I do see it differently. And I would prefer you not to do that again. Oh, but I didn't do anything. I didn't mean to hurt you. All I'm saying is, I understand what happened. This is my perspective of what I think took place. Please don't do that again. Well, I don't know why you're so upset and so sensitive about this. I am simply giving you my perspective of what I believe has happened. And that please don't do that again. I am not defending myself. I'm not giving all the arguments as to why I'm right and they're wrong. I'm simply saying I have a perspective and I have a right to have that perspective. And from that perspective, I have a right to tell you, please don't do it again, whether you see it or not, whether you believe it or not. It doesn't matter. If you don't believe it, if you don't see it, that's fine. But I can tell you this, that if it were to continue, we will probably not be seeing each other near as often because that does not feel good to me. It doesn't feel like friendship or brotherhood, sisterhood, or whatever. It does not feel good. And I have a right to feel it does not feel good. I have a right to decide for myself if something is passive aggressive. You don't decide whether it's passive aggressive towards me. I do. Now, could I be wrong? Well, of course I can be wrong. That's why I'm not there to change you. I'm there to express my views. If I'm wrong, I'll later go, hey, I'm very sorry. I did take that wrong. I thought you were doing this. I heard more information. Then I ended up going, oh, I understood what you did. Please accept my apology. But I'm still, the next time, if it's passive aggressive, I'm going to say, that's not how I saw it. And I see it differently, and I would rather you not do that. I don't even have to use the diagnostic terms of you're just being passive aggressive. And do you know, I usually tell people don't use diagnostic labels when you're doing personal interaction with people. If it's a personal interaction, don't use diagnostic labels. Don't call your husband a narcissist. Don't call your wife a codependent. Don't call your mother, um, a borderline. Don't don't call your brother passive aggressive. Now, do you say then don't do nothing? Then do nothing? No, I didn't say don't do nothing. What I'm saying is you have a right to say what you saw, heard, felt, thought, and this was my assessment of that without it needing to be psychiatric or clinical or this was my assessment. I did not like that. It did not seem warm and caring at that point, and so I would rather you not do that. Rather than you're just being passive aggressive. Usually, when you say those kind of things, the other person just shuts down. They're just off once you say that, and you're probably not going to get very far because people don't listen if you're blaming, and they may listen if you say, "This is my experience." I'm not going to interpret the experience and say it's passive aggressive. I'm simply going to say, this is what happened. This is what you did. I felt very uncomfortable with that. And I would rather you not do that. And if you continue, we may have a problem. And if you notice, that's a much more adult stance with them. Now, they can learn from what I'm sharing with them, or they can not learn. That's up to them. I have no say over whether they learn or don't learn. But I'm giving them good feedback. Actually, I'm being a little more vulnerable with them by saying, That isn't how I saw it, and I still don't. And I will continue to see it this way until I see it differently. I don't know how to, but I'm not wishing you to go to the electric chair. I'm just saying this. I just did not feel that was right. So we want to try to disconnect from that Wi-Fi, I got to work on passive aggressiveness. I got to work on if I take that personally or not, because I believe if someone's being passive aggressive, why do I need to be taking that personally? Isn't that their issue and not mine? So why would I take passive aggressive as personally? I could be disappointed. I could feel sad. I might grieve a loss. Totally appropriate. Hey, I thought she was a good friend, liked me, trusted me, blah, blah, that's fine. But taking taking other people's issues personally is not what I want to do if I'm self-differentiated. I'm going to see them as just your issues. They're just your issues. And I don't need to tell them, now, this is just your issue. That's another way of staying out. Don't get into the diagnostic part of communicating. Just say, I don't agree. This is what I saw. This is what I felt. This is what happened. Not, you're just being this, or I know that's your issue. Because what do you think a statement is when somebody says, I know that's your issue? Shame. That's a shaming statement. You just need to quit being codependent, Mary. Shaming statement. And why are we making shaming statements? Just take care and be self-focused and take care of you. You don't have to make shaming statements. Second of all, families are chronic anxiety management units. And not only is everyone a conduit for the family chronic anxiety, but everyone is involved in managing this chronic anxiety. So a lot of people will come to me and say, my family makes me feel this way. My family makes me do this. I'm going, okay, I understand how your family has impacted you. I'm sure they have impacted you. Making you do certain things, I'm not sure. Or making you feel certain ways, um, let's go gently with that. Because not only are we a part of this chronic anxiety and this anxiety management unit called a family or a dysfunctional family, but we also contribute to maintaining this chronic anxiety in the family. And in fact, by me being a victim, by me blaming, is me managing that chronic anxiety in a family way, in the way the family would manage it. And self-differentiation is to help you get beyond you managing that chronic anxiety in the family chronic anxiety way. I want to manage it in another way rather than the way my family would manage it. I'm a victim. You caused me to feel bad. Da 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 da. That's just what the family would do typically. That's how they would handle it. I don't want to handle it their way. I want a new way of handling it. And that's what self-differentiation can help. And then not only are we not partaking of the Wi-Fi anxiety management unit's work that it's doing, we're not continuing to reinforce it either. And we don't want to reinforce that anxiety system that's going on. If your father yells at you and you yell at him, are you reinforcing the family's chronic anxiety management unit, or are you detaching from it? It's a pretty important question. I'm not saying you can't yell at anybody. You have a right to yell at anybody you want. You're an adult. Yell with whomever you want. I'm just telling you what the effects may be. if you feel like yelling, I guess you're going to yell. But the problem is, if someone's yelling, there's too much anxiety. The other person will then start yelling because there's too much anxiety. Now I have too much anxiety coming to me, and I have too much anxiety going back into the system. So now I'm managing this anxiety by reinforcing it. And I don't want to reinforce it. I do not want to reinforce it. Whether they change or not is up to them, but I don't want to be a part of that reinforcing. And that's a part of how we can break the cycle from one generation um, over the next. Whatever issues I don't resolve for this chronic anxiety maintenance that's going on between the two of us in our relationship in the family, whatever I don't resolve, guess who gets to resolve it? My kids, my grandkids, my great grandchildren. That's whatever I don't resolve, they get to resolve. Whatever my parents didn't resolve, guess what? I get to have to struggle with that. Another example, since the family is an anxiety management unit, when a family cannot handle its level of chronic anxiety, it sets people up for roles. For example, the scapegoat role allows for the unresolved anger, anxiety, unresolved relationship attachments to be drained off to the scapegoat. That's where it goes. That's why we have scapegoat. We take all of our junk and set it over there and head it over there and put it on the back of the scapegoat and send it out into the desert, as the Bible would say. And the sacrificial lamb or whatever, but the scapegoat. And that what happens is, again, it all gets bled off to the person who's the scapegoat. Now, you probably will not be able to get them to stop doing that, but you can be one who doesn't accept the junk that's coming your way, you know. And if somebody says, well, I just think you always cause trouble for the family, Jerry, and I don't know why you can't just get along. Just do what everybody's doing. Come on, Jerry, what's your problem? Scapegoat kind of feeling, I'm always the wrong one. And then what if I were to be self-differentiated and go, well, I understand how you see it that way, but I don't really see it that way. I don't see myself as a troublemaker. It's unfortunate you see me as a troublemaker or a problem in the family. But let me tell you, my guess is the family needs to see me as a troublemaker. That probably helps the family in a number of ways. Well, what do you mean by that, Jerry? Well, I just mean that if I can't handle my own anger, frustration, maturity, all those kind of things, if I can't handle all that, it's going to go somewhere. And for families, it goes to scapegoats. So if that's what I am, if that's what the family needs, I guess that's what the family needs. But I can choose to not participate in that scapegoating. I can choose to not participate. I can't stop you from scapegoating me, but I can choose to not participate in that because I'm not going to reinforce it by getting reactive and being anxious that's not going to help anything. We are all baggage handlers for the family of origin's unfinished business. And again, whatever the family's unfinished business is, somebody's got to carry that baggage. And usually everybody does. Self-differentiation helps us become more aware and disconnect from being the family conduit. I don't want to take up too much of your time tonight, but let me continue on with point number 3. And I might want to mention with the workshop coming up, if you want to learn more about these things, I go into the more detail in the online program starting May 7th, and there's a pre-launch discount that's available. Sign up to the link below, take a look at it. It may save you several years of therapy and several thousands of dollars, many thousands of dollars in therapy. I've had people come, and I'm not the only one. There are some other practitioners in family systems work, but they will say the same thing. When people come, they could have been in therapy for 20 years and go, we never discussed any of this. It never was, not because the therapist was bad, but they had a different understanding, a different perspective. And I think this is much more effective. It's it's not it's not easy. Family systems and self-differentiation is not easy. Um, but if you stick with it long enough, you'll see how simple it really is. I know that sounds, but once you begin to change and transform, then you go, oh, now I see everything this way. Oh, it's a lot simpler than I thought. It's just hard to describe it without a lot of words. So that's what I have to do is use a lot of words. But once you get it, you just go, oh, yeah, that's it. There it is. And I hope that will happen for you. And for this program, I hope it will happen for you. Thirdly, dysfunctional families hoard chronic anxiety and reactivity. It's an absorbing machine. Dysfunctional families absorb anxiety all the time. This is why learning self differentiation is so important, um, because if we are if we're able to differentiate ourselves from the um, family, then we will not be a part of that anxiety hoarding and absorbing machine. If you focus on reducing your reactivity and your relationship anxiety and learn more about the work of self differentiation, you can greatly reduce the impact of your family of origin on you. That's from my own personal experience. That's from thousands that I've worked with before. I wish I were even a better vessel to be able to communicate this message even more, but I'm just who I am. And for some people I've said, hey, this is, well, and I've always had the view anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. And what I mean by that is I don't want to do everything poorly, but if it's worth doing, it's even worth doing poorly because it's still worth doing. It's still worth trying. It's still worth navigating that. In a self-differentiated state, we will not absorb or hoard the family's anxiety. And again, I want to cut off that Wi-Fi that's going on and that internal boundaries that I talk about in this online program. Setting and working on internal boundaries so that when the anxiety and emotions start to come this way, it just hits and goes off and drops down. It's not going to be absorbed. I'm not going to take it in. I'm going to keep in the observer role and not in the absorber role. Number 4, families' emotional processes can be silent killers. Now, that may sound like a funny thing to say. I think we have said for many decades and many years that hypertension was considered kind of a silent killer. Why did we consider it a silent killer? Because you didn't notice the symptoms. There are few symptoms other than just high blood pressure. But it it chronically works on your whole system and starts to erode the body and can cause strokes and heart attack and all kinds of things that may take years to develop. So it's kind of a silent killer. Do you know family chronic anxiety is also a silent killer as well? I believe someday we will see how family emotional processes and chronic anxiety are silent killers for us. Now, why would I say that? And some of you have already caught on to that in some of your trauma work, or maybe you've read things about different healing approaches. Chronic stress responses in the body, chronic anxiety promotes chronic inflammation in your body. As epinephrine and norepinephrine hormones go up as a result of stress and chronic anxiety, it then causes increased chronic inflammation. And those are the beginnings of illnesses and how we get better, whether we don't get better. Does the heart problem become a problem? Does this liver issue become a problem, or does it not? This chronic inflammation that happens as a result of this anxiety can be a silent killer. That's why I think self-differentiation is so important to teach. I got enough things going against me. I don't need that chronic anxiety going as well. I got enough problems. Just as I used to say when I used to do codependency workshop groups, codependency conferences, I used to say codependency kills. Now I know what's even underneath that, and that's this chronic anxiety. But codependency is a killer. If you're codependent, your life is probably going to be shortened as a result of codependency. That's why it's so important to recover. No different than if you're an active alcoholic. Don't you think that could shorten your life? Yes, because of the stress added, the inflammation added, the anxiety added. It's you end up living a shorter life because of those dynamics. Codependency that way, and then underneath codependency is this underlying chronic anxiety spectrum that's underneath that for all forms of life. And yeah, Greta mentioned you have no life in a codependent relationship. Yet you don't. And when you have no life, when you have no self, your stress reactions are going to go up. Epinephrine, norepinephrine is going to go up. More chronic inflation or inflammation is going to happen, and that can have important aspects to your health and how well you get, whether you get it. Why is it everybody's in a room and somebody comes in, they clearly have a cold, they share that with everyone in the room, but not everybody gets the cold? Why would that be? Why would that be that some get the cold and some don't? Because I think it can have to do with how much chronic inflammation is going on, how fortified are your biological systems, how immune from that virus are you. And so I think it's very important that we do focus on our emotional health. And I've talked to people a long time, and I say, if you will learn the things I've been teaching you, and if you will learn those things, I think you will even be healthier. Um, I know for me, I had hypertension. I had high blood pressure. Then I lost weight, a considerable amount of weight, and the hypertension went away. I'm not saying that's easy for everybody and everybody should just go do that and everything would be perfect. But I'm saying it was a silent killer that was killing me, and that probably would have ended my life sooner had the changes not taken place. The same is true for our emotional life and emotional processes. They are connected to our biological processes. And so we want to be healthier and happier. Um, yeah, I definitely believe our bodies, minds, emotions are positively affected by codependency recovery. If you get into codependency recovery, you probably become healthier. Um, Self-differentiation aids you in becoming more yourself and not the puppet for the family's unresolved anxiety. That family's unresolved anxiety. You don't want to be a puppet for that. That's going to affect your mind, your emotions, your actions, your thoughts, your inflammatory system. It's going to affect all that, and your stress responses, and it's going to affect all that. And so I think doing this work, whether it's hard, easy, understandable, simple, whatever it is, it's still a good work to do. It's still a good work to do. Let's give an example. Say mom grows up in a shaming family. She grew up shamed by her family most of her life. And they were always worried in the shaming family that mom grew up in, what would people think? What would people think? Now we have this shaming going on. Oh, you didn't do that right. You need to do that right because what would people think if it wasn't right? Now we have a shaming dynamic going on. And now mom then shames her kids or adult kids as a way to reduce her chronic anxiety that has infused the family about what others think for years. Um, I can even my mother. I was pretty shocked, but I understand how that. I certainly understand how she could feel this way. She's on a walker. She was late 80s, if not maybe 90 or something, um, and that she saw the outside windows had not been cleaned in a while. The windows had not been cleaned. And I thought, well, I'm not really a big windows cleaner. We can get somebody to do it, or I don't want to get up on a ladder, and it's just not a wise thing for me to do. And I may not want to do it. I mean, that's possible too. Maybe I don't even just want to do it. But we could get somebody, or we could get a nephew or someone to help with that. But she was so upset because she said, "Oh, my mother would have been aghast at these windows. She would have felt so ashamed." Mom, did you just say what I thought you said? Your mother has been dead for 45, 50 years, and you're going, what your mom, how shameful she would feel this would be to have those windows not clean? Now you see the Wi-Fi of the anxiety in the family system flowing throughout the generations. Grandma, mom, to me. And it just keeps flowing. And I want to disconnect from that. And how would I disconnect from that? Mom, I understand you see that way. I understand that. And that you would like the windows cleaned, which would not be a bad idea. My own opinion is nobody really cares about our back windows here. Now, maybe somebody does. I don't know. But even if they don't, I'm here taking care of a 90-year-old mother, and I don't care whether the windows are clean to everyone's standard. Just I don't care. And I'm not going to care, and I'm not going to jump into the shame over that. But if you feel uncomfortable, mom, I'll be happy to have someone to take care of that. And um and we can work on that and get those clean. I don't mind, but I don't want to do it. And I don't have the same emotional reaction with that. And other people can think whatever they want to think. If it makes you feel embarrassed, we can go and find somebody, to clean those windows. And again, now she shames her kids and adult kids as the way to reduce her chronic anxiety that has infused the family about what others think. And the whole family has been infected with this anxiety. the whole family. And in fact, my mother, here's another thing. My mother felt so anxious about that, and that's the underlying anxiety, probably frustrated with me that I hadn't cleaned them yet, which is fine. She could be angry with me. That's okay. But so much anxiety. I caught her out there on a footstool trying to clean one of the windows that overlooked the sink on the backside of the house. And you'd have to get up on it. She's on a walker and she's getting up on a. Do you see how powerful the chronic anxiety Wi-Fi can be in a family? Even to the point of doing something that's dangerous, could be harmful, but because it's so strong, we will make poor decisions as a result of it. That's why the work of self-differentiation is so important. And so I would strongly recommend you set up, you take a look at the 6-week program I've got coming up, Your New Road to Self. And uh, I'll probably need to call it a day tonight. I appreciate it. Next time I get online, we'll answer some questions for you. Again, thank you for joining me this evening. I hope you have a great day and be wise.